Project optimization in 3ds Max. Hello, in this video, I will show you how to optimize and simplify a project in 3ds Max so that it does not freeze, opens quickly, and does not crash during rendering. The thing is, in 3ds Max, it is very difficult to work with many 3D models, especially high polygon ones, and they are usually combined, that is, attached. To do this, we select an object. Next, here is the Attach button. We click Attach, it turns blue, and with the left mouse button, we click on the objects we want to attach, that is, connect to this object. So these objects are now attached. If we need to attach multiple objects, there is another button next to Attach. To cancel the attach that we have already pressed, we right-click and the blue button turns off. Then we click the button next to Attach. A list opens with all the objects currently visible in the viewport. These are teapots and a platform. To attach them all, you can select all these objects. I click on the last one, holding Shift, select the top one, highlight all objects, and click Attach, after which all objects are connected to each other. Imagine that we have many objects, for example, an interior with many details, and we need to combine only certain details. But selecting them with the mouse and attaching them is inconvenient. If we attach through the Attach list, we will have objects in the list that we do not need to attach. To properly attach only the necessary objects, we select them and press the keyboard shortcut Alt+Q. This way, we isolate these objects that we want to work with. To exit isolation, we click this button and thus we exit isolation. You can also enter isolation, that is, isolate these objects, by pressing this same button. Now, when we are in isolation, we work only with these objects. We select the object to which we want to attach other objects, choose Attach List, and here in Attach List, we now see only the objects that we have isolated. We can also select them by holding Shift, selecting the last one, and click Attach. Now I exit isolation and we see that these teapots have been attached. I also want to add that 3ds Max sometimes has problems attaching multiple objects. It can just freeze or crash. To quickly and correctly attach all objects, there is a script Weak-Attach. Installing the script is very simple. You just need to drag it into the viewport and that's it. This way it will be installed. Next, we need to bring it up for convenience in the right context menu. Here. To do this, click Customize, then go to Custom User Interface. Then go to the Quads tab, and here we find Quick Attach. We drag Quick Attach into our menu. I will place it above Clone, that is above the Clone button, then close it. So now when we right-click on an object above Clone, we have the Quick Attach button. Quick Attach works very simply. To attach all the necessary objects, we select these objects and right-click to choose Quick Attach. The Quick Attach script window opens, where we can make some settings. First, we can specify which object to convert to editable poly, editable mesh, spline, shape, mainly editable poly. Choose what you need. Then, again, there is the question of a single mesh or breaking it up by materials. Most likely these are elements, but I don't change anything here. Next, include renderable shapes, meaning attaching shapes. If you need to attach shapes, check the box, then click Attach. At the end, this window appears. Attach is done. Click OK. Close the window and our objects are attached. Now let's work with layers. Layers are very important in project work because, for example, you have a large interior project or exterior. It doesn't matter. You need to remove some objects that you don't need, but there are a huge number of them, and selecting them manually and hiding them constantly is inconvenient. It's more convenient to simply close a certain layer with objects and hide the unnecessary ones. So, we need to bring up the Layers panel. To do this, right-click on this space where our toolbars are. In the menu here, we need to select Layers. the Layers panel appears. I move it to the toolbars, and in this list, all our layers appear. Right now, we have the default layer. This is 3ds Max's layer, and as far as I know, it cannot be deleted. To create a new layer, click on the plus. A window opens where we can enter the layer name and click OK. Here we have a button called Move Selection to New Layer. That is, if it is checked, then it will move all currently selected objects to this layer. If the checkbox is not checked, it will just create an empty layer. I click OK and my layer is created. Outside in the rollup, we see the layer that is currently active. Objects can be moved to active layers, so if we want to move some objects to the default layer, we must make it active, select it in the list. If we want to move objects to another layer, we select it and it becomes active. So, suppose I want to move 2 teapots to layer 1. I made the layer active, clicked on it, then I select the teapots and click on this button. That is, it adds all the objects we have selected to this layer. All objects are added. How do we check this? We open the rollup, and here next to the layer, if we click the first button, this button hides all objects and the layer itself. If we click on it again, the objects will appear. The second button is freeze. When objects are frozen, they turn this color, and we cannot select them or interact with them in any way. To unfreeze, we click again, open the rollup, and next to the layer, click the snowflake. The next button selects all objects that are in this layer. If we click it, it selects these 2 teapots because they are in this layer 1. We have reviewed the simplified layer view. Now let's fully review the layer window. That is, we click on this button next to the rollup. The layer window opens. In this window, we can also set a layer. To do this, we click the plus Create New Layer, and a layer is created. We can name it. If we want to rename it again, we right-click on it and select Rename. We can also delete it, Delete. If we just right-click on it, these delete and rename functions will not be available since we haven't selected the layer. We need to select the layer first, then right-click. We have a menu opening with available functions. To activate a layer here, you need to press this button next to the layer. This way, the layer becomes active. You can also make it active by selecting the layer and pressing this button. Make it active. Also, to transfer objects to another layer, there are 2 ways. First, I select the layer to which I want to transfer these objects and make it active, either by pressing here or pressing this button. Then, I select the objects I want to transfer to this layer and press this transfer button to move them to the currently active layer. That's it. Now the objects are transferred to layer 2. If I hide it, those objects will be hidden. There is also a second method for transferring objects from one layer to another. For this, I expand the Layer tab and all its objects open. Then I select the objects I want to transfer. Or I can select them directly in the viewport. They are selected in the layer as well. Then, I drag and drop them into the layer where I want to transfer them. That's it, they are transferred to another layer. Now, if I hide layer 2, the remaining teapots will be hidden. All the teapots in this layer will disappear. Now, here is a button that selects all child objects of the layer. That is, we select layer 2, which contains all the teapots. Then I press Select Children, and as a result, we have selected all objects contained in layer 2. There are 2 remaining buttons, the eye and the snowflake. Here, the eye and the snowflake perform actions for all layers. That is, the eye hides all layers and shows all layers. The snowflake freezes all layers and unfreezes all layers. Each layer has 3 columns, Frozen, Renderable, and Display as Box. The first is freezing. I can press the snowflake next to an object, and it will be frozen. The second button is the teapot, which indicates that our object is visible in the render. If we disable the teapot, then it will not be visible in the render, only in the viewport. The next button is the box display option. It helps with optimization. Under heavy scene load, you can set an object in the layer to be displayed as a box. The next factor affecting the scene is the number of polygons. If there are too many polygons, the scene starts to behave unpredictably, freezes, or crashes. Right now, my teapots have a very dense mesh with a lot of polygons. Since I will not be editing them, for example, objects that we do not need to edit or model, we can simply change their mesh, that is, reduce the number of polygons. How can this be done? This can be done manually or automatically. We select a dense teapot with a dense mesh. Then we go to the list of modifiers. Here, we need to find ProOptimizer. We select ProOptimizer, and first we need to press Keep Text, which means preserving textures during optimization. Next, we need to click on Calculate to compute all vertices and polygons for proper optimization. Now it has calculated how many polygons and edges we have. Here, in percentage terms, we can reduce the number of polygons. Currently, we have all 100% of polygons. And we can, for example, set it to 50 to track how many polygons we have now for convenience. Click on Standard, remove Viewport configuration. This window can also be opened by pressing Alt+B. Here we select Layout. No, we select Statistics. And here we can choose which statistics we want to see. The first is polygons, the number of polygons. The second is triangles. The third is edges, meaning 3 edges. The fourth is vertices, meaning points. And frame per second is FPS, showing the current FPS in the viewport. Show statistics in active view means that statistics will only be displayed in the active window. Next, we can choose total. This means that the statistics of polygons and other elements in the entire scene will be shown. Selection means that statistics will be displayed only for the selected object. And total plus selection is a hybrid, meaning both the entire scene statistics and the selected object statistics will be displayed. Next, click Apply to display the statistics. Press 7, and in the second column, we can now see how many polygons and triangles we have. Now I will try to revert to 100%, and we see the difference. Now I press 50, remove the grid with F4 so that it does not interfere with the model view, and now I will try to reduce polygons further. I set it to 20%. In the end, even 10% is enough, and we have reduced polygons without distorting the model. The next factor affecting optimization is proper copying. When we select an object and, while holding Shift, copy an object, here we choose not copy, but instance. The difference is that copy duplicates the object as it is, making it unique and independent. An instance, however, is a dependent object related to the original object from which it was copied. The next tip that might help: when there is a heavy object in the scene that causes lags, you can select it, click this button, and choose Display as Box. This way, it will be displayed as a box. You can also do this through the right mouse button. Select Object Properties, and there is a Display as Box checkbox. Click OK. Now let's analyze Proxy in Corona Renderer. Proxy helps optimize the scene if we have a lot of heavy objects in the scene. It works in such a way that only a kind of label image of the object is present in the scene, while the object itself is located somewhere on your Winchester on an SSD. Thus, the scene is not overloaded and its size does not increase. To convert an object into Corona Proxy, we need to click on the object, right-click, and then select Open Corona Proxy Exporter. In this window, I will explain. The first button, Collapse and Export to Proxy File, means that all objects will be converted into proxy. The second option is exporting only the currently selected object into proxy. The next checkbox is animated, if we want to transfer the animation of this object. Here, active time segment means the entire animation will be transferred, or we can select the second option and specify a frame range, which we want to transfer, meaning not the entire animation. Next, here we can check or uncheck the Replace Source Object checkbox, meaning if the checkbox is checked, our high-polygon object will be removed from the scene and replaced with the proxy file. Basically, this is what we need. If the checkbox is not checked, then the proxy will be created, but it will not be present in the scene. I select the checkbox and can click on Export Selected Object. Often, my animation gets transferred because I forgot to uncheck the box, even though there is no animation on this teapot. I just created a teapot, and that's it. Now let's analyze proxy in V-Ray. To do this, we also click on the object, right-click, and here you should have V-Ray Mesh Export, I think. I don't have it. So I just select the object, click on X, and here enter Mesh Export. I find V-Mesh Exporter, click on it, and the proxy export window for V-Ray opens. The first option is Export All, which means all objects are exported to proxy. The second option, which is currently selected, is exporting the object that is currently selected in the viewport. If we click Export Animation, the animation of this object will be exported. In the drop-down, we can select Scene Animation Range, which means the entire animation, or we can select Frame Range and specify a range of frames which we want to transfer. I disable it now, and the next checkbox is very important. Automatically create proxy. It should be checked. So, our high poly object will be replaced by a proxy object. If the checkbox is not checked, then our high poly heavy object will remain in the scene. Then I click OK, and the object is converted into a proxy. Now I open where the modifiers are. Our teapot is now recognized as a Vray proxy. Here we can choose the preview type in the rollout to determine how we want to see this teapot in our scene. For example, as a box, so it does not take up many polygons, much space in RAM, or in some other form. You can even make it appear as a single point. I have covered the main methods of scene optimization in 3ds Max for comfortable work with large scenes. If this lesson was useful for you, don't forget to like it and leave a comment.